Adonai panav elecha ve'asem lecha Shalom.
Baruch, Achi, Yehuda, bless you, my brother. Judah, Baruch, Achi, Ephraim, bless you, my brother. Ephraim, Shema, Yisrael, hear and do, O house of Israel. I can't tell you the support and the encouragement that we've had has just been fantastic. And I just want to thank you very, very from the bottom of our heart, just how much that's meant to us. So we really do appreciate that. We've got a quick tech session, which we're going to do with David. So we're just going to explain some of the things with the Zoom and working with Zoom, because some of you may be very familiar with them and others may not. So we're just going to, we're going to go over some of that stuff. Then we're going to do sort of the what, and a bit of an engagement and protocols, and then just do a practice Q&A session with that. And that's going to take a little bit of time, but I am going to do just a quick State of the Union address or State of the Body address tonight for tonight's inaugural meeting. And then next week, we're going to start a series called The Beautiful Mess. But hopefully tonight will just be really allowing everybody just to feel comfortable with what we're doing, why we're doing this, and sort of the things ahead. And hopefully it'll start to make sense to a few people as we keep going. So just before we keep going, I also wanted to mention that I've not normally worked the YouTube. I normally work the Podomatic because a lot of the teachings in the past have been audio only. However, we will be recording the teaching, a testimony, or interview portion of these River Shabbats in the future, and they will be uploaded now to the Donkey Speaks YouTube channel. So we're going to start directing people to that and start working with that. So if you don't know the channel, just type in the Donkey Speaks on YouTube and you'll find it. And just make sure you subscribe to that, because that's where these future teachings are going to be being kept. And we'll probably make a playlist around it on YouTube for the future. So I hope that makes sense. Anybody who's using or following Bible Pathway Adventures, for those of you who don't know, just want to take the opportunity to let you know that we are now making them available in print on Amazon. So we now have the digital downloads as well as the hard copies, which you can order from Amazon. So anybody who's not aware of that, you can go check that out on Amazon and through the Bible Pathway Adventures website. Just lots of exciting things that are coming out right now with us. So we're working very hard to get these available, and then of course do what we can with the missions work overseas to the children that can't afford any of these materials. So we thank you very much for all your support and help with Bible Pathway Adventures, for those of you that engage in that and support us there. And we're also doing other languages. So we'll be we've got the Spanish going right now, and we'll also be looking at Portuguese, French, and German. Okay. All right. Well, I think what we'll do, David, if I can get you to come in, and we're going to do a Zoom tech session with David, and we're really going to look at the rules of engagement and protocols for the Shabbat, the River Shabbat gatherings via this format. We've got a few challenges, and so we're all going to have our disciplines in play. And also too, many of you will just be getting used to Zoom, maybe perhaps for the first time yourself. So I'll hand it over to you, David.
Sounds good, brother. Maybe you want to just temporarily stop sharing the screen so we can see the awesome mosaic again. Wow, it's just too cool. And I'm on a 40-inch screen, and it's still not big enough to see everyone's awesome faces. So we'll go through some of the 101 of Zoom. As Curtis mentioned, you'll notice that you're all muted right now. And if I asked, okay, let's get Ryan in his comfy chair. Hey, Ryan, you want to try and unmute yourself? Yeah, you'll see that he can't. And there's a reason why that. I'm not just picking on my brother Donkey in there. But that we are starting the meeting with everything on mute, so that way you don't have to do that when you come into the room, and also just to have that protocol in place. And Curtis is going to explain more on how we're going to open up opportunities, in smaller breakout rooms called the River Shabbat lounges, where we'll be able to do more interactive engagement. So that's number one, the mute button. Just to get a show of hands, how many people, this is their first time using Zoom? All right, I'm just scrolling through. Okay, we got a couple. Okay, and then, now we'll do, not to deprive the others of raising their hand, how many have used Zoom before? Okay, awesome. All right, wow. Well, anyone who's not used Zoom before, you've got a lot of great people to help you. So you can reach out to them privately on the chat, which we'll go over, and they can definitely assist you in the ins and the outs. So of course, like anything, there's going to be some growing pains. So we're going to probably trip over ourselves, and you're welcome to laugh at us while we trip over ourselves. So believe me, we're two idiots in a canoe paddling towards a waterfall that we don't know it ahead. So you're welcome to laugh. So now if you look at your screen, you'll see a couple things. The mute button in the bottom left. So this is going to be repetitive for those who've used Zoom before, which is most of you. So you'll see the mute button in the bottom left. The stop and start video. So it's awesome when obviously we can see everyone's faces. But if you, just elect for a little bit, you don't want to have the video on, obviously that's your choice, and you can just hit it off. Then we will get to the different views. In the top right corner, you'll see speaker view or gallery view. So you can choose the different ways you want to interact, whether you see just the co-host speaking, or you can choose the gallery view and see everybody's little thumbnail, it's really awesome to see. Just the mosaic, truly, of the house of Israel, front and center. And then the chat, is everyone able to access the chat? There's a little speech bubble on the bottom of the screen and the little menu bar at the bottom. So can everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up, thumbs up, okay. So the chat button, if you click on that, you have the option of both messaging everybody, or from the drop-down menu, sending a private message to a familiar brother or sister that you may know and just want to catch up with. And so that's why in the beginning of each River Shabbat, we'll have about 5 minutes for you to welcome, get comfortable before any of the donkeys open their mouths, so you guys can interact and enjoy. And so then as far as the chat, now we're going to talk about the protocol of the Q&A and how that's going to work with the chat. So number one, the open chat will be allowed. So what you're doing right now, just wonderfully demonstrating, is open during the intro and notices portion. So you'll be able to both message each other and message everyone during that open time, okay? Then once the official session portion begins, so right now it would be the Zoom session. Next week, Curtis will be taking us through part one of the beautiful mess, and then in future times there will be teachings, testimonies, interviews, etc. During that time, the chat will be shut down except for sending messages to the host. And those messages you'll be sending will be questions for the Q&A. So when we are doing the teaching, testimony, or interview, and we'll repeat this, and you don't have to worry so much because we control it on our end, but just to give you a sense of how it will work, that during the teaching, testimony, interview portion, you can only send messages in to the host, which will be the Q&A questions, okay? So all private and public chat is shut down during that time. You need to submit questions to the host via chat by the end of that teaching, testimony, or interview. And we're only taking 3 questions each night for the sake of time. If there's something, really something that we want to say another week, we can save that question. But we will be choosing those 3 questions from the messages that are sent directly to the host by the end of the teaching, okay? So then tonight, for example, after we do this technology session, and Curtis and I explain a little bit about the graphic and how River Shabbat came to be, by the end of that portion, you'll need to send any messages about Q&A questions you have to us. Okay, so it'll be a little trial run tonight. And that could be about the Zoom tech or just about River Shabbat in general. We're going to have a 10-minute break after every teaching, testimony, and interview portion, right? So go get some water, stretch your legs. And then when we come back, we'll have the Q&A. So same thing tonight after our little River Shabbat kind of jam with Curtis and I, we're going to have the 10-minute break and come back for the Q&A. It's important to note during the Q&A, all chat is shut down. So private, public, and direct host chat is shut down to really emphasize us focusing on the Q&A. And as we said in the emails and on the website, it will not be recorded, okay? So any questions you have is really to encourage that intimacy and know that this Q&A time is both to protect the family here and for people that might hear this recording 2 weeks later, have no context about the question, and could be a stumbling block for them. So we want to make sure that both the immediate family and the external family, when we post this on YouTube, don't have that block to stumble. So Q&A will have no chat and no recording. And then finally, the open chat will be opened up again for the concluding portion. So both private and public. To conclude, as we go into the River Shabbat lounges, you'll be able to then message each other once again, interact, etc. So that's basically the overview of the Q&A. So just to rehash really quickly, open chat allowed during notices and intro. All chat is shut down during the teaching except for sending Q&A questions. We will choose 3 maximum each night. 10-minute break, Q&A to follow when all chat is shut down. And then after that, we'll open it up again. And then the final thing about tech I have is please do not distribute the Zoom ID link in between people. Just encourage them to sign up to the email list, and that way they can access the email directly. Speaking of which, and again, these are these growing pains, I know some of the emails, we use MailChimp. It's a really great free email service. They didn't pay me to say that, I'm just letting you know. Where it comes from. Sometimes because it's from a mail distributor like MailChimp, it'll end up in your spam or junk folder, which I know happened to several of you. So apologies there if we didn't give enough notice, but all you have to do is add the paddle at rivershabbat.com email. I'm just going to type it into the chat here. If you add that to your contacts, you will never receive the email in your spam or junk folder again. So it's paddle at rivershabbat.com. That will avoid spam or junk. Also, Gmail has a weird folder called promotions that sometimes it ends up in, and that's how it goes. So yeah, so if you're on the email list and you're here, you guys are golden, and just receive that weekly email newsletter, which will have that updated link with also any links to past recorded videos, teachings, upcoming events, etc. There's the tech overview. I think that's straightforward enough. And again, if anyone has any other questions, your first time, just reach out to any of the awesome people that raise their hand who are returning Zoom users, and they can coach you through it. Again, that's part of the discipleship process, is really to teach each other how to fish and not just make you dependent on us for a couple fish we might have.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen here again. Okay. All right. I'm not sure who's seen the River Shabbat intro or not, so I'm just going to play it and let everybody have a chance to have a look at it, those who have seen it. Well, you're just going to see it again, and those who haven't. And then we're just going to have a little bit of a chat with David and I just regarding the what, and just kind of share with you all the vision and where we're headed, the challenge, and why is what I'm going to finish up with as a part of the message in the State of the Union address here. So we'll just watch this.
Baruch, Achi, Yehuda, bless you, my brother. Judah, Baruch, Achi, Ephraim, bless you, my brother. Ephraim, Shema, Israel, hear and do, O house of Israel.
Okay. What is River Shabbat? David, I'm going to get you to chime in, and we're just going to discuss some of these things together and just let everybody get a kind of a feel as to what's actually going on here. But the overview basically on this is that it really is going to be teachings, but not just teachings. We want to include testimonies as a part of this, and we'll be bringing people in to give testimonies and a part of their journey and what this has been all about. One of the things that we find in the Brit Hadashah is that we're really encouraged that by his blood and our testimony, the saints overcome. There is some wonderful, wonderful stories that are going on out there. People that are really actually starting to grow and to develop. And this is very, very important. One of the things, and there's some concerns I have with things that are going on right now in the wider body, just in relationship to what's happening on social media, to YouTube, to live streams, to things like that. One of the things that we're hopefully going to try to address with this in the why is coming together and learning what building a community can look like and where this can go, because what we are seeing is some very exciting things. And I mean real things. I don't mean just people enjoying themselves or a teaching or being entertained. And so this is an important thing that we want to start going and be essentially a community that's going to start to actually interact with one another. And we'll share more about how that'll work. So we got the testimonies, the interviews. There'll be 2 stick sessions. So for instance, in the interviews and the 2 stick sessions, next month, a good brother of mine, Rico Cortez, will be joining us for an interview at the River Shabbat. And we'll just from time to time bring in various people to do interviews live for those who have come in on the actual Shabbat gathering itself. We're going to do 2 stick sessions, just that perspective from both sides of the river and the journeys. And David's going to kind of be leading the way there, having come and been raised and born into a Jewish family. And so his journey and coming from the bank there, and to sort of get the perspective of what is the river perspective on certain matters or things that might be going on from scripture to just how we're to view things in the body and so on and so on. Because there's just lots of stuff that's going on out there, both on the Ephraim or Christian side, if you will, and also on the Yehuda side or Judeo side. And so it's important from our perspective that we realize that there's a house here, and there's a bit of things that are going on. And some of you might have heard me speak about taking the flying fox and coming off one riverbank and landing on the other. And if you've not heard the teachings, although I know Torah Made Flesh is just now starting to post the teachings from Sukkot, I actually go into the river prophecy there. So that's now available on the YouTube as well, on the Donkey Spinks, as well as the Torah Made Flesh channel.
The flying fox, I had to figure this out the hard way. That's a zip line, for those wondering.
Yeah, a zip line.
It's not an actual animal. It's a zip line from one side of the bank to the other. And yeah, and this is really what we're going to talk about. This river is not just this mix of, a little bit of Jewishness, a little bit of Christian stuff, and we kind of muddle it together, but actually taking the truth from, the both riverbanks that they've preserved, and loving our brothers for preserving that truth, but maybe dusting off a little bit of the leaven that's come in, and then, getting clean in that river. And we'll talk about that in the canoe and why, it's that motion of action down the river. But really, I think that's the focus of the 2 sticks. And what I'm really excited for is to appreciate one another and to love, and not to put people down, and not to create whitewashed tombing and self-righteousness, but really to appreciate what brothers have walked before us to preserve what we have today. And that's both Judah for what they've preserved, and also for Ephraim. And I'm very thankful to that. We'll talk about that more for Christianity. And I've become to fall in love even more with my Christian brothers for preserving the Messiah that I wasn't raised with.
Yeah, so we've got some real interesting sort of perspectives that we hopefully want to realign, so that when we come into the river, we're not just throwing the expression or a term that we use down in Australia and New Zealand was throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We got to be very careful, because this is what we get guilty of, and we hang on to our traditions and whatever leaven we've picked up on our journeys along the way. And again, but the problem is that there's not really a healthy way to interact. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that in the why as we kind of work through these matters. River lounges. This is something that I'm quite excited about because hopefully, and this comes into this connecting the house of Israel thing, but we'll talk a bit more about this on the next screen here. There's the discipleship stables. Many of you are already involved with stables right now. And then we're going to be looking to holding a camp or two of the discipleship camps for those who are wanting to, once they're feeling comfortable, to venture on and to open up a stable themselves. And we work directly with those people and the servant leaders there, and they become a part of just helping continuing to connect the house of Israel. And then, of course, there's the appointed times as Feast the Moedims. And then anybody interested in giving or donating to everything that we're doing here, that's just can be done easily through one of the three websites, either Bible Pathway Adventures, thedonkey-stable.com, or rivershabbat.com. Okay, so let's talk about Shabbat gatherings, teachings, interviews, and testimonies. So, David, why aren't we going with just teachings every week?
That's a big why. Of course, you lobbed that one my way. Well, we really, I think, part of the intention and how it came together. And I think for those who were able to spend River Sukkot with us, and we called it River Sukkot for a reason, we were able to see the dynamic of allowing, really the Ruach to be the one guiding and leading here. And through that will come through teachings and edification, from brothers who, have really studied these matters out, as well as testimonies. So we want to make sure that none of us, right, as men, have truly a monopoly over that. And we want, just as, the principle of the stables is, this is a Ruach-led environment. And I know that we are hoping to incorporate that same mentality in here too. So that's, long story short, and we'll go into this more, why not just teachings? Because there's so many people that have those testimonies and valid experiences to share. We want to learn from them too, right? Learn from one another in a proper, healthy way. And I think that's really what it is. It doesn't eliminate we'll call it the position of overseer, right? And those who have walked before, but it also doesn't eliminate those who have testimonies that are just vibrant, with their time in Messiah and his ways. And so I think that's, long story short, why it's not just teachings. We really want to get a good witness, and I don't use that word lightly, of the house of Israel.
Yeah, and we don't steal our Messiah's glory either, too, in testimonies, because it's really the work that he's doing in us. And like I say, I get to live a life where I get to hear and not only see people's journeys, but to hear testimonies. And so often I just have thought, man, how the body could really, really benefit from hearing this person's testimony. Because oftentimes when we're going through, it could be in the fires of our lives, it could be something we're excited about, whatever these things might be, that can benefit one another from hearing them. Because sometimes, as many of you know, you think you're the only one going through something, or have been through something, and to learn and hear from others, and to understand that they've gone through it, and then to have the opportunity to connect with them, which will leads me to the next part of this, is the river lounges. And what we'd like to start encouraging, and Pip and I are going to be doing this hopefully at least twice a month, where we're going to be opening our home via Zoom. And just inviting people to come in and enjoy fellowship with us. And we'll be looking to do this either on a Saturday night following Shabbat or Sunday night. And we're going to look to be doing this twice a month. And really, that's just opening up people to come and join us and come and know us and talk to us and fellowship with us. This is a very exciting part of what I believe we could do with this format. And that is start connecting people who are scattered. Many people don't have the opportunities or can't go to a local Shabbat gathering, either in their area or one that they're comfortable with. And so one of the things we'd like to do is not only provide a format where we're getting the interviews and the teachings and the testimonies out on the River Shabbat gatherings, but also the opportunity then to connect. And so we'll be reaching out. I know David, you and Sammy are also going to be doing this, opening up a lounge.
Yeah, starting next week. It'll be on Saturday, so Shabbat afternoon. But yeah, next week, yeah, probably about once or twice a month.
Okay. And also too, and I'd like anybody out there who would like to open their home via Zoom for people to come and join them. I think we really would like to know about it. The only thing that we ask at this stage, if you're having the lounges, that you are part of the actual stables, because that's where we grow and we can walk in a more accountable environment. And also we, just wanting healthy people to being hosting things. But in a way, just think of it as, basically Pip and I or David and Sammy or whoever else is going to be willing to do this, basically just making some time available in your lives to say hi and catch up with people and communicate where not everybody's on the mute button, and just enjoy each other as a family.
You described it really well in the stable last week, just after a Shabbat gathering where there might be a more formal and official presentation as we're using the technology to kind of present, right? But after that, right, everybody will hang out, different tables, grab some food, right, some salad, and hang out and chat. So that's kind of the nature of the River Lounge. It's like literally inviting people over for a coffee, right? After the gathering. So that's it. I just loved how you explained that, making time and really allowing for that more interaction. And it's so cool. I mean, just even seeing everybody's screen here, just the fact that you can see into people's homes in a way, in a positive way, is really cool, because it really allows you to face to face, get to know people a little bit better.
Yeah, it's a real opportunity to, and also it's a comfortable environment where you can just show up without, having to make a deeper commitment or put something in your life that sort of leads us to the next stage, which is the actual donkey stables. I can see we've got a lot of people that are actually involved with stables right now, actually on the screens. And again, some of the testimonies we'd like to get from them as well, because this is a place where people have started to make a commitment to a smaller group of people just to walk that next level closer. And we'll talk a bit more about that tonight. But when that starts to happen, this is where people can go to do a number of things and chew the cud, even have a vomit, raise doctrinal questions, things like this. But they can do this in a healthy, accountable environment. Instead of just being keyboard warriors on social media and things like that. And so we're just seeing a lot of bad behavior out there in the body. And so this is one of those things where we're going to be really trying to give people an opportunity to come together and get to know one another. And if they're comfortable, then they can look at joining a stable. So for the River Lounges, I'd just like, if anybody's on the screen tonight and you really feel comfortable that, hey, we'd like to open our home up, a couple times a month, once a week, whatever, to let us know. David, where can people go to let us know if they want to?
They could email Paddle. I think it's probably the best way, so it doesn't get lost in the chat here.
Okay.
Paddle at rivershabbat.com.
If you're inclined with you and your wife to open up a lounge, or even a gender-specific lounge, if you just want the ladies visiting or just the men, just let us know and just send an email through. I'm sure we'll find out about that through the stables anyway. But that would be good, because I think the more that we can come together and actually then engage in discussions and things that are going on, it's going to kind of lead into things that we'll be doing with discipleship camps, and also to the feasts and the Moedim. I've noticed there's a few people that did join us this year in Christina Lake, which was a more intimate, smaller gathering. I apologize that we didn't come out publicly or too widely with that, because we just didn't have at that time the ability to facilitate numbers. And also Pip and I were just nearing sort of the end of our transition, and we were very worn out and very tired. And so we needed a smaller and more intimate setting. But for those who joined us, and many joined us from, wow, I think we had all four corners of North America covered in this thing.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
We even have our host from Christina Lake joining us tonight on River Shabbat, which is just honestly
Dustin
praise.
here.
Yeah, Dustin's here.
Dustin, oh, that's right. I saw him earlier. That's
Yeah,
right.
praise. I mean, it's just wow. You know what? It really was a special time, and we really want people to see that heart. It's the same thing happened, right? It's not that it was a special time then and now everyone missed out on it. No, it's that same heart here. Like Curtis said, to look ahead to these discipleship camps and the feasts. That's the heart we want people to see behind it. We had some really special guests there, and so just mentioning our host from that Moadim, because I think it's a testament to the love that was witnessed there, because he's joining us tonight, and praise y'all for that. It's tremendous, really, to see so many different faces coming on together. But just wanted to mention that just to show you how it's interesting how things are coming together and how he's moving.
And I tell you something else too that is really striking about what happened with the Moedim and the feast this year is that for the most part, I knew or have engaged with a lot of the people that had joined us. And the difference in feast and Moedim when you're with people who you're starting to connect with and walk with are staggering. To encourage the fellowship and connecting even at deeper levels. And we just enjoyed so many fireside chats and just time together. Families got time to be able to spend time together. And it was just incredible environment. And I'm hoping one day that we'll be able to have a Moedim somewhere in North America, and everyone involved with that Moedim would have been a part of the River Shabbat gatherings, because it does change the nature and the whole sense of being with family during his appointed times. So that's just something that I really want to encourage you about, because as we take on the challenge of trying to build a community together, we can really look forward to some neat times. The one thing's for sure, if we allow it and we give opportunity, the Ruach or the Holy Spirit will show up during his appointed times. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I can't tell you how blessed we were this year to be with the people that we were. So, I mean, we had a great time. I don't know about you, David, and you and Sammy, but it was just fantastic for us.
Yeah, it was. And that's why, we reflected on River Sukkot. It's really easy to call it that. But I remember the last day, right? The last great day, looked back and said, there was so much going on that it was only could be accredited to him. Like it was actually surprising how little we did and how everything came together. And people that were there can attest to that, right? It wasn't manufactured. It really came together, and that it verified that it was a River Sukkot experience. And that's, again, the same river we want to be in here, and River Shabbats going forward, and River Lounges. And, it's not just a brand that we're now grabbing the river, right? It's a prophecy from Daniel, and it's something that the spirit of it. And that's the prayers, that everybody sees the love from the brothers, sees us walking together, sees and hears the testimonies, and can experience that joy when really, Messiah is dwelling, rooted in your heart firmly in belief.
Yeah, I think we've really got a real opportunity. This is an exciting time. And if we're willing to connect with one another and to walk with one another, we're in a very, very special time. And in the prophecies of Daniel, and then, of course, the great prophecies of Ezekiel, and this incredible time that we're experiencing right now across the world with the house of Israel starting to wake up. And we want to be a part of being able to sort of connect those people and really start getting us to enjoy each other as a family, because there's just so many of you I know or have had a chance to meet on this screen. And to me, it's just a shame when I meet people and I think, oh man, they would love to meet such and such or whatever. And so we're going to try and make this happen. And we'll talk a bit more about that when I go into the why message of all of that tonight.
You want to just, before we conclude this portion, and just so everyone knows, probably today's going to be a little shorter than subsequent ones. It's the intro, it's the welcome. So just FYI, we ease you into the river, and then we push you in completely. You maybe want to bring up the logo just to see, because I know it's been around in the emails and the YouTube intro, and just to focus on it a little bit, just how it really is. It's come from a product of walking together. And
Hold on.
yeah,
I better quickly jump back here.
it's all good. Yeah. And then if anyone has any questions again about River Shabbat as a whole or any text specific, feel free to send it into right now in the chat. And then after we conclude here in a couple minutes, we'll do the break and then come back to answer any of those questions before Curtis gives us a parting thought. So yeah, let's go back to the logo.
Oh, back to the logo?
Yeah, we just want to focus on it for a second. It's just a great.
There we go.
So I just, a note, these guys are oblivious. The paddles that they have, and, obviously maybe someone wants to put it in to the chat. I'll put it in, everyone. The chat's open again for now. Anyone notice anything interesting about the paddles? I saw somebody, I think that was, who was that? Joni did a little switcheroo. They have each other's paddles.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So Curtis, you want to talk about how actually that came up intentionally, unintentionally, in a cool way?
Well, we were, it's an interesting thing, but when we had our designer from Bible Pathway Adventures just put together an image that kind of reflected the spirit behind what we're wanting to do with these Shabbat gatherings. And I said, listen, can you put Judah and Ephraim on each of their paddles? Now, many of you would probably notice the one in the front there is Judah, and Judah's kind of gone before us. And so we gave him the honor of sitting in the front of the boat. And then Ephraim, wearing the silly hat like myself, is sitting in the back. But what you'll notice is Ephraim has got Judah's paddle and Judah has got Ephraim's paddle. And that was unintentional. That had come back from our designer. And when I saw it, I was thinking, I got to get that changed around. But then I realized that it was interesting. This may have been a Ruach-led moment because really coming off my side of the riverbank, I've been learning how to use Judah's paddle. And it made sense that was the actual one that I was holding. Mm-hmm. And, representing Ephraim side of the riverbank here, or the Christian side. And then same David thought the same in relationship to coming from the Jewish side.
Yeah, it's really picking it up and learning about it, where something you always kind of had, on your radar. And for me, just reflecting and this coming together has been really cool, because kind of say that I've always had some of the two sticks in me, because my father, who actually is here joining us tonight. So that's a joy to have him on this mosaic. So love you, Dad, and thank you for everything you've done to bring me here. But that his parents were Christian. And so I was able to have some exposure to that side, all growing up, even if it wasn't really cemented or explained, there was still some exposure. And so this coming together has been pretty cool. And so now picking up the paddle completely and really diving in has been such a joy, as I know many of you who were raised on maybe the Ephraim side, really spending time in the foundation of the books of Moses. And the prophets has been a joy for you. And for me, it's been falling in love with Romans and Galatians and Ephesians and Corinthians and books that, were never, taught even miles within the Hebrew school I grew up with. And so learning this paddle of Ephraim and loving the people that kept it alive, even albeit not perfectly, just as Judah. And please, let's neither side gets off the hook. But neither side gets the hook. Neither side gets the hook. Let's love them and appreciate them and for what they've preserved, albeit not perfectly. And so, yeah, that's just, I think that logo is just, it's really about let's enjoy, let's get in this river, get in this canoe covered by the perfect pitch of our Messiah and King, and paddle along.
Okay. What we're going to do, just to test this out so everyone can get familiar with this, we'll just do a quick break for 10 minutes. If you have a question about just what we've discussed with the what or any of the technologies in Zoom, or whatever it is, just test it out and send us a question, and we're going to pick 3, because this will actually come at the end of a teaching, an interview, or a testimony each time we do the gathering. We've just brought this forward for the purpose of testing tonight before I go into tonight's message. Also being aware too, for some of you, I noticed we've got some people from my dear family from New Zealand. Hi, Trace. Hi, everyone. There's people are coming in from different parts of the world, different parts of North America. And so times are going to be a bit different. I know for the people on the East Coast right now in the States, just for everybody bearing in mind there, they're staying up a lot later to be a part of this. And so, of course, if you're on the West Coast, we started this all at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. So we're hopefully finding a place that most people can come in and join us. I saw we got Shahid there from Malaysia, which is fantastic. Anyway, there's just so many of you out there, and I could just keep going on and on. But it's just so neat to see everyone. But what we'll do is, just for the sake of tonight, just so people can get used to this, is we're going to open up the chat again, David. Or is it just they can get through to us with a question?
No, it's open. So this time, 10-minute break, it's open again to connect and chat. And then we'll come back in 10 minutes and do the Q&A. So send in the questions, and then also, connect with everyone else in the chat.
The way we've kind of learned our faith, we've almost got this thing where our Messiah, Yeshua, and the Holy Spirit, the Ruach, they need a marketing department almost, the way we treat it these days, and or a salesman. And I really want to impress on everybody that this is truly not the case. The work, the Father calls us to Him, and we've kind of turned this into almost like an industry of selling our faith and, saving people, as in, justifying them. And we don't really call anyone, and we don't save anyone. And so what was the real instruction that came out from Yeshua? And this is something that I think has been really missed on both sides of the river. And I just want to bring everybody back into this. So we're just going to read Matthew 28:19 here. And Yeshua came to them and said, all right, so he's speaking to the disciples, he got, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. So all authority means all authority. There is no authority that has not been given to him. So even Hasatan, who's given the title God of this world, is still under the authority of Messiah. And that's important for us to recognize, because he's about to say something. The one with all authority is about to say something to us. And he's giving the instructions. And he's saying, therefore go and make disciples of all nations. Mikvahing, or baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit, or the Ruach. Teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. And now we are approaching the end of this age and the coming of our Messiah. And this is a very important aspect for us to really, really understand, that our job wasn't to call or save anyone. We were called to disciple those who have been, that we would grow and mature, that we may become a light. And what we've done is, instead of being a light that people could be attracted to, we've become these marketing, salesmen and blowhorns. And there's been lots of shenanigans that have come about as a result of all of this. And we've seen so many things happen within the faith on both sides of the river, and 30,000 plus denominations, and everything that we're seeing on the Christian side, and then on the Judeo side, Messianic, Hebrew root side, we're just seeing all of this stuff. And what I want to really encourage you, and what this is really about, the why, is for us to get in the river. Dr. Jordan Peterson, for those of you that may or may not know him, he's a clinical psychologist, quite famous. He's actually Canadian, But he literally makes a statement that I think really goes with what we're trying to say. He says, there are some games you don't get to play unless you are all in. And one of the things that I'm going to suggest to you is many of you would not be on this screen tonight unless you are all in. I hope that you are, but I'm going to do my best to weed as many of you as I can out. And there's going to be a reason for that. And that might be shocking some of you at this stage. That may not mean any of you that are on the screen tonight are weeded out. But the reason why I believe he makes this statement, and I believe it's the reason why Yeshua, when he referred to, unless your hands are on the plow, you are not fit to be my disciple. Yeshua is our rabbi, and we are to follow him. And what he's saying is not that I don't love you, not that my blood doesn't justify you. You are not fit to be my disciple. And one of the biggest things I see going on is that people are entering into a space where they are not actually in a level of discipleship that Yeshua spent most of his time patterning. But somehow they think that they can go out and be telling everybody else how it's done. Now, I'm going to get a bit tough here with the state of this union, because we've got to be at some point honest with what is the state of the body right now. And if we can at least be honest with that, then we can get or try to start to engage in a way that actually is going to allow us to overcome and to mature and to grow and to not let all of these things that are causing all of this division and separation within the body to continue to occur. And so these things are happening. For some of you, many of you, you may be familiar with this. This is the analogy of the discipleship tree. And I'm showing you sort of the inner rings of this tree. And you'll see there at the top, we've kind of got this international fellowship, or this wider kahal. And this would be sort of things like the Donkey Speaks, Bible Pathway Adventures, all that type of ministry activity, just to give you an anchor point here on this. It is an important part of discipleship. Okay, so this outer ring has its place. Okay, but it is not all of discipleship in and of itself. And so what we find in Scripture is that there was a wider body connection. There was a role for the fivefold to operate, to be able to share, to teach, and to give to the body in that way. However, we weren't told to only live in that space. And this is where we're seeing some of the things today on social media or with live stream or YouTube and whatnot, where people are now scattered. They're walking alone, and this is the only place in which they're actually trying to live their faith. And then they're left to the battleground of their mind. And no place to chew the cud or even to vomit. And so this stuff comes out in keyboard warriors on social media and things like that. And people end up essentially hurting each other. They're not lifting up, edifying, or even getting to know or understand what the person has said, why they've said it, and so on and so on. And basically, we're living in this day and age where we got the luxury to behave badly. What we're doing by not publishing the Zoom IDs publicly is that we're saying that this is not a place that we're going to continue to try and foster this type of behavior. It's not acceptable. And what you're seeing go on in the body out there is seriously damaging. And you have a Messiah that is going to hold us accountable and answerable to this. And this is going to be a shock for many teachers or for many people in the body, whatever it may be, that we are actually being brought into a state of living our faith, which is essentially unhealthy and it's unbalanced. And we are not doing it the way that he actually patterned. So this becomes a challenge for all of us, as how do we not engage in this way that Hasatan, the God of this world, is trying to get us to? And we're seeing all this bad behavior as a result. The next stage of this, or what we see in overall discipleship, is a wider fellowship. Now, this might be your local gathering. Some of you may or may not have a local fellowship, which you can actually go to. This is a wonderful thing to be able to go to and to catch up and to be with the family and people who are trying to understand and walk in their faith, indeed in a deeper way. However, for many people that have been called out, and I know certainly from the Christian side, you often wake up, and some of you maybe, have experienced this, going, well, why didn't anybody tell me that the front of the book still mattered? And I know that some of you may be able to really relate to that almost in a sense where you can actually be angry and hurt because you essentially feel lied to. And instead of us staying in that place of emotional reaction, we're trying to see, well, how can we engage in wider fellowship? Then some of you are in a space where you can't find a healthy fellowship around you. It doesn't exist around you. And you've tried or you've looked and you don't know where to go. And so the only thing you have then is to jump back up to the international fellowship side. All you have is the YouTube, or all you have is the live stream. And thank goodness you've at least got that. So we're not criticizing those things in and of themselves. But what we're saying is that for some of you, you have this, others you don't in the wider fellowship environment. That doesn't mean your wider fellowship environment is healthy still, but at least you have it as an option and to be able to go to and engage in. Hopefully, by trying to walk in the next level, which is the smaller gathering level, which is what Yeshua patterned, that your ability to engage in the wider and the international may become healthier and more balanced. One of the things that I found 12 years ago when I was challenged in all of this was that I wasn't really engaged at the level that Yeshua had actually patterned in order to grow and to become accountable and mature and healthy. And what that does is it means that you're only playing in those wider fellowship or international spaces. And unfortunately and sadly, most of the teachers that I see out there are actually do not have this in their own lives. Now, that is not a place for any of you who know me. I choose not to walk this alone. In my smaller fellowship gathering within the stables, and certainly where I was in New Zealand, and what we did was we chose to implement small group fellowship environment. The reason for that, and this 12 that Yeshua modeled, was that this becomes a place where an environment is a bit more trusted and you're walking with people so that you can actually work out issues instead of vomiting out in wider fellowship environments or international fellowship environments and looking like a bad light. From that, though, and some of the dearest things that happened to me in my journey was that you develop close fellowship with people along the way. And you start to walk in that 2s and 3s. And you'll see, and I talk about this in Gethsemane, where Yeshua actually brought John, Jacob, and Peter to him closer when he was in his greatest time of need. And if any of you have experienced serious fires out there in your lives, you will know that having close, trusted people, your John, your Jacob, your Peter, reality is not only a nice thing to have, it's almost essential. And there are so many people that are being plunged into the fires of their lives, and they do not have this. And my heart breaks. My heart breaks for those people, because where do you go? What do you do? The best thing you've got is, some sort of Messianic or Christian, counseling hotline. But what about walking with people who've gotten to know you, or you can start to trust? Because you might have to go to a level where, you're actually having to share more intimate details of what's actually happening to you. Well, it may not be healthy to do this, even at the small group level, or certainly the wider, and most certainly the international fellowship level, because these people don't really know you and don't walk with you. And so where we're finding is that, and what I found over the years, and where it's been put dearly on my heart, was that, and what I was being challenged with by Yeshua was, Curtis, you've got to get this operating in your life. And if you don't have a close, intimate fellowship environment when the fires hit, I tell you, this is something that just, it can destroy a person's faith at that level. And yet the fires are the things in which Messiah counsels us to buy gold and to grow and mature in. But he's saying, don't do it alone. And so one of the challenges we have then with this whole thing being scattered is, how do we do this? And again, this is the heart and the driver behind why we are doing River Shabbat. And the places that it can lead to, and why we're going to try and connect and help you all to come together and get to know one another, so that your walks can come and grow at another level. As good as a teaching might be on an international level, or certainly in a local fellowship level, that is not where you grow. from a position of going through fires, from vomiting, from chewing the cud, all these sorts of things. And so we need to start to get back into the pattern of our Messiah. This is not a game. This is not a joke. Yeshua made this commandment for a reason and modeled it for a reason. And I believe what you've seen is the inner rings of this tree have been bored out, essentially. They've been bored out, essentially, and it's created an unhealthy tree because there's not a lot of living water that comes up on the outside of a tree. It comes up on the inside of a tree. And this is very, very important. And so if we have a disconnect occurring there, then getting that living water to us is a very difficult process. Now, the Ruach is greater than our current compromised position. However, that doesn't give us an excuse, especially with the technology we have today and the ability to connect. I believe if the disciples knew what we had at our disposal today, it would absolutely blow their minds. And if we didn't use it the way we should be, shame on us. Nothing will replace us getting together in person with one another. This cannot do that. Ultimately, when we gather for the Moedim, just like we did just recently at Christina Lake, nothing replaces that. But how do you connect and walk together so in order to come together and enjoy that? How can you do that on your own and start to build the relationships where you will do that? So we don't use the excuse that, well, seeing somebody in person means that we don't actually try and connect together utilizing what we have. And I commend everybody who's come together like this, because I think in your spirit, you're starting to realize either some of the things that I'm saying, or you're starting to realize that we're without excuse right now in these times leading up to the return of our Messiah. And this is an important thing. So the technology, although it's being used very well and widely and poorly and destructively on the international fellowship side, and even within the wider fellowship side, it's certainly not being used within the smaller group environments. And again, this is the place where I believe we really get a chance to start to get those trusted relationships and to grow. So why River Shabbat? Well, quite frankly, we have an opportunity. And anybody who's been engaging thus far with the stables and starting to walk with some of the things I'm sharing and why I'm sharing them, there'll be people right now on this screen that can give some testimonies that perhaps your faith has changed more than you could have ever possibly imagined. Is there anybody on the screen that can testify to that? Just put your hand up. That's help. Yeah. For those of you that have actually experienced this, you'll know that actually we are without excuse and we should try to engage. And we should try to encourage others to engage as we connect the house at this time. It's important. We have a world going crazy out there. And yet, we're not taking this opportunity. It's going crazy with all the technology, the social media, the polarized politics, everything that we're seeing going on, and particularly in the States, in the US right now. It's getting to the point where you almost feel like there's a point of insanity the way people are behaving, especially in the political side. And yet we are of the house of Israel. We are not of Rome. And we're not here to tell Rome how to behave. We're here to actually try and become a light for them. But if we don't start getting into the pattern that Yeshua gave us, how do we become that light? By showing them how we argue with one another and put each other down on international fellowship rings, on social media? What kind of a light really are we when that's the only place that we're living our faith from? Because I've learned it this way, or this is my opinion, or this is how I understand it. Therefore, I've got the right to behave, or the luxury to behave badly. And quite frankly, we don't. We don't have that luxury. And so we've got to figure this out. And we've got an incredible opportunity at this time to actually help so many people who are alone, who people don't even know that this exists tonight. They're actually alone. And some of you on the screen may be alone and may be feeling alone, and you'll know what I'm saying. It'll be reaching into your very spirit right now. But for some of you, you're not experiencing it to that same degree. But do you care about those who are alone? Because if we don't start caring, if we don't start engaging as a body, I can't do this all on my own. I can't answer hundreds of emails or responses on Facebook or things like that. I can't have the opportunity to be able to do that. But as a body and Yeshua growing in us, we do. And so if we're just living, I've got here this micro versus the macro. If we're just living on these outer rings, or we're just maybe just on the inner ring, just with our own family, because we've been so hurt and burnt by whatever's going on out there on whatever side of the riverbank, or we're just trying to live in the outer rings because that's all we've got to date. That's not to criticize that. But what we want to do is be a part of that ring that actually can help grow us and mature us and bring the living water through. Does that make sense to everybody so far? Good. So what are we doing? We're looking at building a community of people that will bring in true engagement. This is important because it's quality versus quantity. I'm not interested in the numbers. Now, if the Father grows us to thousands of people connecting in River Shabbat, great. But quite frankly, this is not about, I've got here no looky-loos and flakes. And I'm going to say the same thing that Yeshua is saying. If you're not ready to actually start to walk and find out who your brothers and sisters are in the house of Israel, if you just want to live in that unintimate, unaccountable, unhealthy space with your faith, good luck to you. Good luck if that's what you're going to make your journey, because we all have this appointment with Messiah. And he modeled something, and we don't get to come over the wall any other way. I know this might sound tough, but I told you that I was going to try and make this tough enough that those of you that really don't want to walk with a family, you really just have an agenda, or you think you've got it all sorted, or you know better, that's fine. Then perhaps you're not ready for Shabbat gatherings, River Shabbat gatherings. Yes, perhaps you're not ready for the lounges and getting to know and connect, because this is not a space for agenda. And this is not a space to hear how much you know or think you know. This is a place for more closer and more accountable fellowship eventually. But we want to do it in a way that welcomes people and that has people to come in to give a chance to come from a hurt position, a burnt position, to be able to connect in a safe and healthy way. And so this is where we're going to get beyond this, social media and live streams as being the only way that we're engaging and connecting, especially if we're scattered. I've got this. This is not about entertainment. If we make this about entertainment, or what's the latest little weird thing that we can come up with, or conspiracy theory, or whatever it is, we're going to start to live our faith from that space. And I assure you that I don't believe Messiah is going to be going, hey, did you hear about, what color the Nephilim, enjoyed the most? And did you understand their favorite color? And did you understand, what they like to do on Mondays or whatever? There's so many things. Now, does that mean that understanding and knowing, interesting things about the historical context of Nephilim doesn't have an awareness and an interest to it? Of course it does. I often say I love talking about the weird, the wacky, and the wonderful. But if this is coming at the expense, if we're clicking on things that are feeding our morbid fascination before we are willing to walk and engage with others, we have I believe, a very serious moment of reality when we stand in front of Messiah. He is not going to be asking you how upped you are with all the latest conspiracy theories and how good the God of this world, Hasatan, was at deceiving everyone. At some point, we're going to have to get beyond this and to grow. And so if we make our faith about entertainment, we're going to get in trouble. And so I don't believe that many of you that would have made the effort to come on tonight and sign on tonight are in that space. Maybe you have been in the past. Maybe you still enjoy that space. I know I do it from time to time. But maybe, just maybe, there's something in your spirit that is going, you know what? I'm going to go beyond that. I'm going to start to live in this different space. And we're going to start to learn who we are and enjoy each other as a family. Does that make sense to everyone? Amen? Okay, so I've just got this visual up here. And so we're at the River Shabbat gathering tonight. And we're going to encourage people joining in lounges and getting together. And that's just a space for people who are willing to open their homes, get together, and enjoy and walking with one another. And I'll tell you, if you engage in those sorts of things, you're going to love it when you get together for the Moedim. Because I know I saw this year in the Moedim, people who only ever knew each other from a stable or Zoom environment, who saw each other for the first time in a Moedim, and they didn't miss a beat. It was like they knew them, and just picked up where they'd left off, but they were seeing them in person. How beautiful that was. Nothing can beat that. But it will be encouraging people to get involved with this and to start doing it. You might create lounges and environments for some of you that get your own Zoom accounts, to be able to just open up a little bit of your life and your time to others, so that they can start, someone can just start to connect in somewhere. And from that, you may go, you know what, I'm ready. I'd like to go into a deeper discipleship environment, and you can learn who has a stable and who's got a room and time and a space available, and just to look and to go investigate that, and maybe eventually be a part of a stable yourself. But I don't recommend, this is not a sales pitch to go into a stable. In fact, it's the opposite. Don't go into a stable if your hand's not to the plow. Because if it's not to the plow, you're going to eventually just become, a looky-loo, or you'll be flaking it in that environment. And what you'll be doing is essentially letting down other people. And so this is an important environment. Those of you that are in stables, though, and have been for a while, you start to realize not only the beauty and the benefit of them, but you'll start to realize that these are brothers and sisters that really do want to try and figure out and grow in Messiah. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place, and many wonderful friendships, and things are starting to develop, and we're seeing a lot of good fruit come about, from relationships, friendships, to behavior, to marriages, to all sorts of things. Out of a stable environment, some of you may even then eventually be led to go and say, you know what, I'd like, to open up a stable and to be a part of just facilitating a deeper discipleship walk. And that's what the discipleship camps will be for, is those people that eventually go, you know what, I'd like to be a part of this. And I believe we have a Messiah, a head coach, who wants to get us on the field, and he wants us to be a part of the game. And so this is something exciting, and that we can be a part of. I can do what I can be called to do from a fivefold perspective, and to teach, and to evangelize, and to oversee, to be a part of apostleship, as we're doing now, all these sorts of things. But I can't replace Yeshua and the Ruach, and nor am I supposed to. And if I'm to serve effectively in that space, then the effect of people starting to grow and mature, and me serving in that space, is just tremendous to see. And so, the more that what I've been called to do doesn't fall on deaf ears and falls on more mature ears, the more that we see good fruit coming about in the body. And then, of course, all of this leads into the appointed times. And next year, we're not sure whether we'll be doing Christina Lake again, or where it might be, but we'll start to facilitate and let people that are involved in the River Shabbat and lounges and stables, we'll let them know. And what we'll be encouraging, not that anybody who's not involved with River Shabbat would be necessarily not allowed, but there's only so many spaces available for people. And we do want people getting together that have actually made the effort to connect. Does that make sense to everyone? And they should be allowed, first of all, to be able to have that part. Because if there's only so many spaces available, I'd rather it not be looky-loos and flakes. I'd rather actually have the people that have taken time out of their life to spend time with Messiah and Yeshua and others. And this is an important, very, very important part of the whole journey there. So, State of the Union, in a great house, and if you read earlier in 2 Timothy, I believe in chapter 2, you'll start to see that the context of this is the body. This is speaking to, and the way that it commences in Timothy, in a great house. Okay, so this father's house of Israel. And then later on in Timothy, he starts to address what will be the state of the body in the last days. This is not the state of Rome. We don't get to blame unbelievers for what I'm about to share with you. But understand this, in the last days, there will come times of difficulty. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedience to parents, ungrateful, not set apart, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, or engaging in Lashon Hara, without self-control, brutal, not loving what is good. This is a sad thing for me to say, but as I continue to read, I'm going to tell you there's nothing I can disagree with what was written here 2,000 years ago. And what I'm actually seeing play out in the social media and the wider ring that I was showing you earlier. Please take this serious because this is us. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily you as an individual and you're all of these things. But what I'm saying is this what we're seeing play out within the body? And sadly, we are. Treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of Elohim, having the appearance of being set apart but denying its power. Avoid such people. For among them are those who creep into households and capture weak women. Notice who the adversary is going after for people who are not operating in a true Holy Spirit-led manner. I'm sorry, ladies, but you're the target. They capture weak women burdened with missing the mark or sins, led astray by various desires. They're taking advantage of this on the outer rings. And they're putting all sorts of manner of things into your head and whatnot. We're going to talk about this in a sec. Always learning and never able to arrive at the knowledge of the truth. The word knowledge there in the Greek means accurate or intimate knowledge. Does anybody find this a sobering scripture in the Brit Hadashah? Put your hand up if you do. Okay, so the challenge, we're scattered. What kind of a light are we? Are we living on social media? Engaging only on live streams? How about fear-based? How many are living us with a fear-based reality out there right now? Self-righteous based. I've learned a little bit of knowledge. Now I'm going to go smash everyone with it. I've got the answers. You know, those are the ones. Watch me deal with them. I'll get on some faceless existence and send a message. I sure showed them. I can tell you, if you want his righteousness to leave the reality of your life, just bring your self-righteousness into it. I know if I want him to exit the room, I just got to get to that place. So I want to walk in an environment that's going to help me from getting to that place. And this is ultimately, again, what we're trying to do. As a result of these things, we have no self-awareness. Many of us walking alone, we don't know any better. We've been hurt, we've been burnt, we're living on, and eventually we lose our self-awareness. We don't even know what kind of a light we look like anymore. No discipleship at the Yeshua patterned level, that more intimate environment. Yes, yeshivas on the Jewish side or on the Christian side, Christian universities or classroom existences, which is, very Greek in its context, Gnostic, the seeking of knowledge. These do have a place as a part of overall discipleship, but they are not what Yeshua patterned. It was Hebraic in nature and it was apprenticeship based. Walk with others. I'm sorry, we don't just get to go to a classroom that's called discipleship and think that we're actually living it. And boards on, certain ministries don't count. And showing up and watching a live stream doesn't just count in and of itself, or watching a teaching on YouTube. These are all a part of overall discipleship. But if we are not walking in the pattern that he gave us, that he spent his time on the very thing he put back in place because it had been taken away from the people, then we're trying to do it essentially from an unintimate. We're trying to get an intimacy with Yeshua from an unintimate environment. As a result, nowhere to vomit. Is anybody, when I say this, people go, what are you talking about, vomit? Has anybody ever experienced, you might be experiencing it now, where you get really angry inside because of what somebody is saying? It might be touching a chord. Hands up if anybody has ever angered you on a teaching or in a fellowship environment and it's really upset you. Happens to all of us. Hopefully I'm not doing it now. But what I can tell you is that that's okay. It's normal. We all experience this. Sometimes we beat ourselves up because we got into this place and then all of a sudden it's like, oh man, I didn't behave too well, and then we beat ourselves up. But this can be a part of things that can go right back into our childhood and our emotionally arrested development, maybe how we were raised, what we've experienced, our hurts, whatever has gone on. And in unintimate, untrusting environments, sometimes the only thing we can do to express ourselves is to vomit, and potentially in an unhealthy way. However, once you start getting into a closer type of a walk, vomiting now, or having a moment where you're going, hey, I'm not happy with this, or I don't agree with that, or what about this? When you can start to do that in a healthy, trusted environment, all of a sudden, it's a beautiful thing. And that vomit that comes forth, I call it vomit, whatnot, is the nutrients for the very ground that is being tilled in discipleship. And I promise you, the very process of going through this is the very thing that fertilizes the soil and can ultimately grow healthy trees. Does that make sense? It's not the fact that we do this that's the issue. It's the fact that we have nowhere to do it in a healthy way. Sometimes there are things we need to address in our lives or we don't agree with or we don't understand. So how are we going to do this in a healthy way? And this is what your Messiah came and patterned. So as a result, we don't have these things in our State of the Union. We get an unhealthy focus on doctrine and not on character. I don't see, by and large, and I'm generalizing, I am speaking about the state of the body here. Okay? So don't take this offensive. And again, anybody's heard me teach, everything I'm saying to you, I say to me. But we can have an unhealthy focus on doctrine. And then our very character in Messiah isn't allowed to grow. And yet Paul was engaging in a way of saying to grow to the fullness of Messiah. I don't see in the New Testament or in the Brit Hadashah where we are growing by having unhealthy, unaccountable disputes on doctrine. So I don't know how we think we're going to do this as a body as we get ready for the return of our Messiah. So maybe we're just getting a chance. But a lot of this is causing divisions, disputes, controversies. We're getting into arguments over calendars, sacred names. We're focusing on the dark. Nowhere to chew the cud on any of this. And I've seen so many engaging in all sorts of Lashon Hara, or the speaking ill of each other in the body. By the way, Yeshua hates this. But we've been given this environment that almost is giving us permission. See, technology itself, right now, we're using technology in a very different way. This is not in the hands of the enemy. Technology in and of itself is not the issue. It's like guns don't kill people, people kill people. And so this is an important thing. We can use technology to hurt others, or we can use technology to grow others. And the choice is ours right now. But we don't get to blame it either way. We got to take personal responsibility of this, and our character behavior and the amount of Lashon Hara that I see being engaged in the body, gossip, malicious gossip, all of this kind of thing that's going on. I'm seeing in the body men being feminized, women being masculinized. You know, it's easy to see this in Rome, isn't it? Right now. How nice does it look out there for everyone? You enjoying what you're seeing on the news? Do you know, as a result of this, and I believe in particularly, like Timothy was trying to say, the target will become the women as a result, just like it was in the garden. Because essentially we have an environment that is becoming unsafe for women. And make no mistake about it, 6,000 years ago, he went after Eve. And 6,000 years later, just like Timothy is saying, it's exactly what he's going to go after. And I'm seeing so many women being left. in these unsafe environments. Now, Rome doesn't know any better. They don't realize they're on fire and they're hell-bent on destruction. I can't change that. I'm seeing all of this silliness go on. All these arguments as if it's about equality and not design. We can't change that in Rome. But if we are the house of Israel, then I've got a question for both men and women right now. Do you love the Father's design? Because if you do, then let's live it. Let's be a part of this, because it's not about equality. It is about the two becoming one. But the designs have very different roles and manners, and we're going to be talking about this in the beautiful mess at a deeper level. As a result, we're lacking or no male headship in marriages. So we're seeing this very compromised right now. So our covering may be Yeshua. He's our covering. He's our rabbi. But men, you have a role in headship in marriages to be the design you are supposed to be, to raise your children in his ways, to cherish your wife, to do all these things. And now we are seeing these roles reversed in the house. Men and women who supposedly claim the faith are adopting the way Rome is behaving and acting. I don't know who thinks that's acceptable, but I read a word that says, my ways change not. And if they don't change, then I think we need to get back to loving the Father's design. Amen? All right. So, the race challenge. I've got the tortoise and the hare. Everybody familiar with the tortoise and the hare? Hands up. Yeah. Okay, this fella, he's real quick, isn't he? He knows it all. He's cocky. He's arrogant. He's built for speed and design. Surely he's going to win the race, right? And this is the competition. You see, when we talk discipleship at the 12 level, everybody goes, well, this isn't quick enough for me. This isn't efficient. This isn't, where's the entertainment? Where's the numbers? Where's the big movements? Where do we go? Where are we on fire? For the Lord. You probably heard all these sorts of things. And yet you don't even see these people in the race eventually. And guess what happened to the hare in this race? Who won it? Anybody who knows this analogy knows that the tortoise won it. How is it possible, looking at the design of these two creatures, that this thing actually won it? And yet 2,000 years ago, Yeshua was patterning something that didn't look efficient, that seemed crazy. He's doing it with the highways and the byways, with the prostitutes and the tax collectors and so on and so on and so on. How could these people possibly be the ones that Messiah himself was going to choose to change the course of human history? And I'd suggest to you, I believe the bookends are going to be the same. You are being called to this, but we don't get to do it our way. All we can do is take what we've got and try and learn his. Are we perfect? Are we doing it perfect? Will we do it perfect? No. And we're going to talk about this in the Beautiful Mess series. We won't. We're going to have to get our hands dirty, and we're going to have to get over ourselves. And we're going to have to learn what this looks like. But I'll tell you something, if we can learn love, if we can learn how this looks, if we can be honest with our own behavior, if we can start taking accountability for that, we might just enter into repentance. Do you know that Yeshua's call was to the believers? Repent. And I believe that's what we all face now, to repent, to turn to him and each other at this time. Well, we've got the chance to do this. The day may come when we can't do this, but right now we can. And everybody on here, everybody who's a part of this, I believe would play a part, if you're willing, to play a part of connecting others and to help them and to be with them and to walk with them, despite the fact that we're not good enough. I get that all the time. Oh, but I'm not a teacher. I'm not this. I'm not that. Okay, fine. I can't do this. I can't do that. Yes, you can. He's not asking, and he's not calling everybody to be in a fivefold reality. It's not about everybody's got to be able to have verbal diarrhea like the donkey. But I'll tell you something, you have a coach that wants you in the game. And he wants you to finish your race. And whatever that might be, that you would walk and grow with others in Messiah, that you may know how that fully plays itself out. And while that's happening, we get cleaned up. We might not be perfect along the way. Paul said it like this: I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Therefore, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Messiah, the righteous judge, he's pointing to the judgment seat here, will award to me on that day. And not only to me, but also to all those who have loved his appearing. Paul got to a point, despite that he knew he was the chief of all sinners, of all missing the mark, a man so humbled by the reality of his life, from being venerated in the Sanhedrin system, someone so well educated on the Torah and the prophets, it would be beyond comprehension for any of us to really get just how serious this man's life was, and then to give it all up, to be mocked and ridiculed by the very system that upheld him. And then to live a life of being imprisoned, being chased down, and then eventually killed for his faith. The humility of this man by time his journey and his life was over is stunning, and we miss it in scriptures. And this beautiful, humble man that gave up his life and eventually his life so that we could have this meeting tonight and read these very words. Knew something, to the point where he was even looking forward to his judgment seat. I'm not there yet. Maybe some of you think you are. Maybe some of you are there. I'm not the judge of that. I know I'm not there yet, and I need your help. And if I'm willing to help you and walk with you, are you willing to help me and walk with me? And can we do this as a family? May that light be a light to others. Can we all start getting in this? Because I'll tell you something. There is something that Paul talked about, and we do have an appointment with Messiah. And we have so many distractions. We're so time poor. We're just trying to get through the day. We're trying to do all of these things. But I'll tell you, just a little bit of your life to connect with others and to walk with others, just a little bit. You could find the very pattern that Yeshua modeled. And it can help us grow to the fullness of who he is. So next week, we're going to start this thing called The Beautiful Mess.